So should I open the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to a morning in my life as a 27-year-old stay-at-home wife. And I'm not going to lie, the first
So this is a 27-year-old stay-at-home wife, apparently, who wakes up in the morning, shows us her oral hygiene routine.
And while she's out there, I will fill up a Stanley for both my husband and I.
And then talks about how she gets her husband water because without that he will not hydrate. With the hashtags wife life, married humor, and married life. The notion that she has to be making sure her husband stays hydrated is something.
A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with Sarah, one of my producers, and she showed me the type of stuff she's been seeing on social media lately. As a 26-year-old white woman, Sarah is the prime target for an emerging space online, what some are calling the womanosphere, where conservative ideas about gender and the, quote, innate differences between men and women are thriving.
Day of my life as a stay-at-home girlfriend.
Okay. So this is not a stay-at-home wife. This is a stay-at-home girlfriend who gets to really focus on skincare, Pilates, making cut fresh vegetables, picking up fresh flowers, and making sure her boyfriend eats some soup for lunch. It looks like that's pretty much her day. It is really interesting, like nothing is kind of clear on what these husbands or boyfriends do, but it sounds like, her job is to stay healthy, stay fit.
Yeah, it's not like, I stay at home and so I can really engage in my pottery or like in her own kind of hobbies. And the thing is too, she says like we go to his favorite latte place.
Oh yes, that's right. So she makes sure that her boyfriend gets his favorite latte.
Now, longtime listeners might remember that a couple of seasons back, we explored mothers as a political force. The way that the motherhood identity was evoked in ways that advanced justice and impeded it. And naturally, part of that exploration involved investigating what was then a niche cultural trend, tradwives.
I dress for the job of homemaker, mother, gardener, cook, mother, wife, nutritionist, activity coordinator. The list goes on and on and on and on.
A lot has happened since then. Tradwives have become so ubiquitous in our cultural discourse that on one level, there didn't seem to be that much left to say about them. But just as the manosphere has exploded in recent years, the trad space has also expanded, and tradwives are just one part of the womanosphere ecosystem.
Okay, let's move on to the next link.
Oh, this is the baby tea. So this is, you too can purchase this at Urban Outfitters. Oh, it's sold out. It's no longer available. It's a little blue baby tee that is cropped, that says too hot, and hot is in red, to work. So I guess this is what we wear when, we have a man who's going to be taking care of us financially. I have to read the 7 reviews, though. Oh, here, this is a good one. I love wearing this shirt to work. It puts the right vibes for people who come in contact with me. If you are too hot to work but have a job, I recommend. Wow.
So let's move to the next one.
Masculine men like feminine women. Of course they do. Okay, so she's wearing a little pink baby doll nightgown, and her husband's kissing her, and they have a perfect blonde little cherubic child that comes into the shot.
And what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, boy.
I'm Julie Kohler, and this is White Picket Fence. This season, we're exploring America's gender backlash, the way that gender is being used as a Trojan horse to advance an extremist agenda. Last episode, we focused on the strategies the right is using to indoctrinate men into an ideology that devalues women. They've made significant inroads, which on some level is not surprising. Not only are they tapping into emotions that young men are experiencing, disconnection, resentment, the deal that they're offering them is kind of attractive, on paper at least. Basically, they're being told to reclaim their rightful place, on top. But in order to firmly reestablish a gender hierarchy and take us back to the days of yore, the right also needs the buy-in of the other half of the equation, women. And that's a trickier proposition. They're asking women to buy in to oppression, to a specific and reduced role in society. By some measures, their efforts are falling flat. Gen Z has the largest gender political divide of any generation. Trump may have made inroads with young men, but young women are shifting left at unprecedented levels. And the gender divide is not just in politics. A recent poll found that young conservative men rated having children and getting married as some of their most important life priorities, whereas progressive young women rated both as some of their lowest. So why do conservatives see such an opportunity with young women? That's the question that we'll be exploring today. Let's start with a feeling that a lot of us are familiar with: exhaustion.
We are in a post-feminist moment.
That's Anne Helen Peterson. She's a journalist who writes a Substack newsletter called Culture Study and hosts a podcast with the same name. Like us, Anne has been trying to understand how we got to this moment, a moment in which women's rights are being rapidly eroded and retro social media content is everywhere. And Anne has come to a conclusion. Feminism is exhausted, meaning that it has become devoid of meaning, at least in the way that it's discussed in popular culture. And in this state of exhaustion, it is ill-equipped to fight the forces of regress that are hammering us on a daily basis. So, how did that happen? Well, for one, feminism has evolved pretty dramatically over the last several decades.
When I was a young woman, it was still politically risky to say that you were a feminist. And that seems wild to me, but it was very much like if you said, I'm a feminist, like in a college class, it gave you like the very stereotypical, like bra burning, like killjoy understanding, like at that time.
Anne is talking about the late 90s and early 2000s, when feminists were punchlines in movies and TV, labeled feminazis. Then, somewhere in the 2010s, things started to shift. Slowly at first, but also in major culture-shifting ways. Like in 2014, when Beyoncé performed Flawless at the VMAs in front of a screen emblazoned with the word feminist.
I think what happened was the term became popularized. It was something that, like, of course, if you were a cool young woman, you were a feminist. Like, it was uncool to not be a feminist.
And while bringing feminism to the masses may have seemed like a significant step forward, it also meant that the term
became diluted. The popular understanding of feminism morphed into the understanding that, like, if I, a woman, choose this thing, it is feminist, without any interrogation of how that actually matches with, like, the overall project of disassembling white patriarchy.
This is what many call the era of choice feminism, or girl boss feminism. Very white, very cis. Think Etsy shops selling prayer candles plastered with pictures of Hillary Clinton or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Bumper stickers with phrases like, "The future is female." Girl power anthems by Katy Perry. It was a feminism less focused on changing the status quo and more on figuring out ways women could benefit from it.
I do think that everybody has a critique of the girl boss.
That's Sophie Lewis. She's a scholar who writes about many things, including gender and family. Her most recent book, Enemy Feminisms, explores different branches of anti-liberatory feminism throughout history.
I would say that much as the girl boss died 5 minutes after being invented, she remains undead. She's still with us. Perhaps she gets renamed. We get the female founder, but her failures, the girl boss's failures, have opened the door for an absolutely terrifying post-liberal and in some cases self-described reactionary feminism.
By focusing attention on individual women's achievements and away from structural oppression and exclusion, girl boss feminism opened the door to something even more sinister. A form of conservative feminism that claims that women's liberation lies in the embrace of traditional gender roles. And by celebrating all of the women who made it, girl boss feminism also sent the message that gender inequity was no longer an issue. In short, it helped transform feminism into post-feminism. Here's Anne Helen Peterson again.
Which is the idea that, like, we don't need feminism anymore. We're good. Like, we got credit cards. We can buy things. We're good. Like, we can have sex with whoever we want. So what if the sex is bad? And we can, like, buy really expensive shoes, and we can have our own apartments. And so if we have all of these, like, things within capitalist society, then that means that women have, like, gained power. Or that, like, the patriarchy. Like, we don't need to fight the patriarchy anymore.
Feminism's exhaustion created a void. And when COVID hit, that void expanded exponentially. Suddenly, people were stuck in their homes, reevaluating their lives, looking for meaning and solace. And they found that in the only community space we had left, online. And online, people, especially women, were being offered a vision of a simpler life. One where time was being marked by feeding your sourdough starters or tending to your tomato plants.
COVID amplified it, accelerated it in a way that I think even people who consider themselves liberals or progressives, like, feel that anxiety very intensely. And this is part of what's at the heart of, like, a lot of people I know who would still consider themselves feminists or liberals or progressives. Like, they're like, why do I like watching this stuff? It's a fantasy of what my life could be like if I was only working one job instead of 3.
And it is in this context that the right saw an opening. Tired of being tired? Do you wish you could live in a cottage in the woods for real? Would you like to make this soothing content you're watching a reality? Well, well, well. Don't we have a proposition for you?
I remember so many people were like, stop focusing on trad wives. Like, this is such a small component of the population, but it trickles down.
Quietly, but quickly, the right was able to turn an Instagram aesthetic into a political ideology, one that claimed to be a solution for women's burnout. Here's Sophie Lewis again.
The trad wife is a figure that was always going to come about in a scenario where there has been such a disastrous failure on the part of left and liberal feminism to come up with an answer to the enduring, crushing problem of the double shift. Okay, now this is a concept from the 70s, right? Women are structurally double exploited because as the economy shifts, and by the way, we are, so far past the era of the single wage earning household or the male breadwinner household, in this moment where women are exploited in the formal workplace and are wage earners, they come back home and have to do more work, the unwaged shift, as it were.
Over the same old news cycle? Tune into Hysteria, your weekly group chat with Alyssa Mastromonaco and Aaron Ryan, where no topic is off limits. From politics to pop culture, they bring you brutally honest takes on the stories shaping our lives. From powerhouse women like AOC to wellness trends and education. No sugarcoating, no doom scrolling. Just real talk, strong women, and hope to keep moving forward. Catch Hysteria wherever you get your podcasts. And tune into their YouTube channel for full episodes and a special series.
Hey everybody, I'm Naomi Ekperigan.
And I'm Andy Beckerman.
We're a real-life couple and a real-life couple of comedians. And we're the hosts of the podcast, Couples Therapy.
We're the only comedy relationship podcast ever. Yeah, I said it. And we're so good, we've been written up in both the New York Times and we made Grindr's list of top podcasts.
Yes, we're giving you that high-low appeal. Trust. On the show, we talk to guests like Bob the Drag Queen, Angelica Ross,
Bowen Yang, Janelle James, Danny Pudi, Darcy Carden, Paul F. Tompkins,
and more. All about love, mental health, and everything in between. And we answer your relationship questions. We are two unlicensed comedians just trying to help you out.
So open your hearts, loosen your butts, because we got a lot of laughs
and a lot of real talk just for you.
Download Couples Therapy wherever you get your podcasts.
In this era of late-stage capitalism, many women clock in at their jobs where they earn the money they need for rent or the mortgage or the grocery bill. And then they go home and step into a caregiving role. Dinner, homework, soccer practice, dishes, bedtime. And then they wake up the next morning and do it all again.
We're all overworked. We're crushed by overwork. That's a sort of generalized universal fact of the 99% who are not, Jeffrey Bezos. And so there's something emotionally appealing to the invitation to exit waged exploitation, even when the reality that you then find yourself in is not particularly work-free. That's the thing that I think we need to be complexly acknowledging and engaging with on the left.
It's true that women's mass entrance into the paid labor force hasn't alleviated their exploitation. Too many women remain underpaid and overworked. But one of the reasons this second shift remains so crushing is that as women have assumed greater responsibility for breadwinning, men have not assumed a proportionate share of household labor. Yes, our generation of husbands and fathers do a lot more around the house than their fathers did, especially when it comes to caring for children. But the division of domestic labor remains pretty unbalanced. 35% is performed by men, 65% by women. And it's not only who performs the labor, it's who carries the responsibility for remembering what needs to be done. Here's Anne again.
And a lot of that has to do with socialization, right? Like things, how you were socialized to notice things. That's what I always think about is like, who's the noticer in your family? So you have the noticer, you also have all of the invisible labor, sometimes called the mental load, which is like keeping all of this stuff in your head of like, when do I need to make the appointment to get the windows washed? Like, when do I need to make the dentist appointment?
It's not just feminism that's exhausted. Women themselves are exhausted and anxious, insecure. Because to top it all off, women are constantly being sold the idea that they're not doing enough. Literally sold the idea.
Advertising has always worked to make us feel bad about ourselves. Like there's like a lack that we could be doing better.
Back in the 1950s, for example, the U.S. needed to figure out how to get women out of the workplace, where they had stepped up during World War II, and back into the home. Homemaking needed to feel like a career. So women were marketed all the latest technologies that would make homemaking a dream.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute.
Gracious, now I'm seeing things.
Oh, no. I'm Manners the butler, and I wish you'd try Kleenex table napkin.
With Tide, things always come out clean and fresh as a sea breeze.
Back then, the platforms were TV, radio, women's lifestyle magazines.
If you look at like a Good Housekeeping magazine from the 1950s, they're all there on TikTok. They're just different creators, or even the same creator, different videos.
I pride myself on having an extremely clean home. I want it to be so clean that guests can come over at any moment and I don't have to do any prep work, like it's just already ready to go.
If you want so many compliments when people come to your house, you have got to be getting this R&W Co. mop soap.
Packed my husband's lunch today, who hates cold lunches and doesn't eat fast food. So picky, right? I was scrolling through TikTok shop and found this electric lunchbox.
These videos are doing the same thing. They're just, I think, hailing us in a different way. Here's how I organize my fridge. Here's how I keep my cuticles healthy. Here's the supplements that I take to keep like my hair robust. Here's how I do a clean shower. And here's all of the items that I purchase in order to do that super clean shower. Here's like a recipe for the healthy muffins that I make for my kids. Like all of those things were the women's magazine. Yeah. It's just now that they are distributed differently.
Rather than a washing machine, they're selling you a whole lifestyle. The alt-right media landscape targeting young women has expanded into other platforms. It now includes magazines like Evie, which is marketed as the conservative Cosmo, podcasts, talk shows and YouTube channels, femcel influencers who label themselves feminists, but emphasize the, quote, fundamental differences between men and women. Like the manosphere, the womanosphere is not a monolith. What it is a collection of anti-feminist, gender essentialist voices who are united in a vision of womanhood that is, according to one Guardian article, thin, fertile, and Republican. Like the manosphere, this world of content is targeting legitimate anxieties and uncertainties. They're capitalizing on the precarity and insecurity of the current moment and the very legitimate pain that it causes. Men are being fed the idea that women are doing too much. They're too independent. They're playing both caregiver and breadwinner. Women are being fed that same message, but flipped. They are being sold a fantasy of doing less. Men are unfulfilled. Women are overworked. What all these corners of the womanosphere have in common is that they've found ways to channel the anxiety, resentment, and dissatisfaction that many women today feel, not against failing capitalism, not against insufficient government support, but against feminism. They're pulling a bait and switch.
A lot of the, like, what I understand as anti-feminist tradwife rhetoric is actually a reaction to the dystopia that they see amongst feminists. They say, like, when I see feminists living their lives, that to me is dystopic. So how do I do something different?
The problems are real, but mislabeled. And the proposed solution is suspect. This alt-right content is presenting a glorified pre-feminist lifestyle without any acknowledgement of the downsides.
For women in their 20s, you're expected to, like, kill it at your job, but also be amazing at, like, grooming and regimenting your body and looking amazing all the time. What if you only had to do half of that work, right? What if you got rid of the killing it at your job component and your only job was to look amazing all the time and, like, make yourself chia bowls and, like, smoothies and just, like, leisurely do your yoga and also clean your house, but, like, do that while you look cute after yoga. At least that's how they film themselves. And I think that that just looks like, I mean, it's half the labor, right? Like, what a relief.
But the tradwives, stay-at-home girlfriends, and other alt-right content creators represent something much more sinister. As Anne says, they're the handmaidens of the Christian nationalist agenda.
You know, when I first wrote about tradwives, it was about 2 summers ago. And I think we were in a different moment. I think a lot of these things were percolating, but we weren't necessarily connecting the dots. There was a lot of skepticism that I think Donald Trump would be reelected and that Like we were recovering from some of the ideologies of Trumpism and of MAGA, but we're on like this forward trajectory. Now I just see that as like a point of clarity, like, oh, this should have highlighted what was going to happen in the 2024 election in a lot of ways, right?
Even if this content isn't explicitly changing voting patterns, it's sending messages that align with the right's agenda. That women could, or should, always try to be more. That liberation and salvation can be achieved through adherence to a specific feminine aesthetic. By becoming the ultimate caretaker. If you have a clean house. If you make the perfect homemade meals. If you find the right nighttime cream for your skin type. You'll finally be happy. Things will finally be okay. But Anne contends that all of this personal optimization that's being encouraged is actually a form of self-annihilation.
When I think about self-annihilation, what I mean is that like you're trying to erase the friction of yourself. And that means like you are not a problem to anyone. You do not stick out. Your house is not a problem. Your kids are not a problem. You are not a problem to your husband. Your body is not a problem. And there are all these ways that you can try to smooth your edges and make yourself less of a problem, less of a societal problem, right? But what happens then is like there's no you, right? Like who are you apart from everything that you are trying to be for everyone else? When you focus so wholeheartedly on hating yourself as is, right? On regimenting the self, of course you are distracted from fighting like patriarchal control. Like it is an incredible, incredible deflection.
The womanosphere encourages us to be insular, to look inward, to focus on ourselves. Changing the system that makes you unhappy can feel impossible. But changing yourself? That feels well within your control. But there's a catch. What they're selling us is an ever-moving goalpost, one that can never be reached. They're turning us into Sisyphus in a sundress.
This like idea that somehow you will reach this perfect point of organization where everything will be easier. And it throwback again to like 50s magazines where it was like, if you just buy a laundry machine, your life will be fixed, right? And you won't have this deep sadness inside you, right? And I think that there is oftentimes this ennui of like, well, I'm not fully fulfilled. Where do I direct that other energy? And so it gets turned back on the home, on the body, on cleanliness, like all of these ways that you can essentially manufacture work for yourself and then complete that work in a way that is satisfying.
As we scroll past this content every day, it's important to remember that much of it is not organic. It's part of a cultural crossover strategy, one that the right successfully executed with young men and are now applying to women. So how do we ensure the womanosphere doesn't envelop us? Anne thinks that conversations are a good start, making authentic, real-world connections, building community, reminding each other that we're not alone in our struggles or our exhaustion.
It's hard because I think the one thing that we should, I think, internalize in terms of like where this regression comes from is that like disciplining people and shaming people about like why they believe what they believe, and especially with this stuff, like that's not effective. Like I don't think the conversations that they have in like a comments section of a TikTok are going to change anyone's mind. But I think talking more about it, like even in your friend group, right? Because oftentimes these are the sorts of things that people don't talk about, right? Because you think that all your politics are very similar. But there's someone there who's like, I'm just struggling with this part, right? Like, how do I make sense of this? I think especially the conversations that we have with our kids, and I don't just mean our daughters.
Equally important, we must use these conversations as a springboard to collective action, building the power we need to change systems.
And then also just like keep fighting this damn good fight of like, the only way this is going to change is if we get different policy, different understanding of like how we are responsible for one another, if we actually care about one another in the way that we legislate, instead of putting all of the responsibility for parenting and surviving in the world on the individual. And I think like on a more micro level, that means like being in community with one another and like showing the ways that you care about other people in your community. But on the more macro level, like that continues to be ushering in change. And that's a hard thing to say in this particular moment because things seem so intractable, but this is also not the moment to stop.
So what does not stopping look like? We all know that resistance is critical, but it's also insufficient. One of the reasons that the current gender backlash has been so effective is that it's been oriented towards a specific vision, one that's retro and ahistorical, but also clear. And ours? What is our North Star? Next time, on the season finale of White Picket Fence, we delve into it all and grapple with how we must strategically resist and reimagine.
I believe in a country that's for everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. And I think that we can say everybody because there's actually enough for everyone. And that if we allow everyone to thrive and we create conditions where everybody can thrive, it actually creates more abundance.
White Picket Fence is an Acast Creative Studios production. Our producers are Abby Delk, Sarah Schleid, Lucy Jones, and Joya Putnoy. Our editor is Maddie Foley. Additional editorial support by Vanessa Handy. Executive producers are Jenny Kaplan and myself, Julie Kohler. Original music by Sean Patel. Show art by Aria Goodman. Special thanks to Clean Cuts for audio production assistance, and to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for their generous support for this season.
This morning, a woman asked me if I wake up every morning and read the news and just totally lose my shit.
That's why we're launching a new podcast.
It's called How to Not Lose Your Shit.
How to Not Lose Your Shit.
My name is Katie Paris. I am the founder of Red Wine and Blue. We are a community of way over 500,000 women together now who are working to fight back against extremism.
I'm LaFonda Cousin. In addition to being the chief people officer at Red Wine and Blue, I'm also a yoga instructor.
I think we need to be real with the people that this podcast is not really going to be like an instructional guide to how not to lose your shit.
I lose mine several times a week, every week.
Maybe it is about trying to make a difference while losing our shit a little bit less.